Okay, we are live. How's it going, everybody? Happy Sunday to everyone that's going to be joining us today. Hope you are all having an amazing weekend, and I hope you enjoyed part one, which of course was yesterday. If I could get a sound check, that would be fantastic. Let's see. Everything's looking good on my end, but if I could get somebody to tell me, hey, Jesse, I can hear you just fine, that would be great. Okay, we're going to get started here in just a moment. Whenever you see me looking down, I am looking down at my laptop. Okay, I'm using my laptop to monitor the feed. It's where I see your comments and things like that. Just doing a couple of quick checks to make sure that we are in business. Things are looking good, but just want to make sure. There we go, part 2 of 2. Fantastic. I think I need to adjust the angle of my camera a little bit so the image isn't crooked on the screen. All right, I see some people. Sherry says you sound great. Your sound is great. Thank you, Sherry. Hi, Becky. Thank you so much. Okay, so again, today is part 2 of our Emerald Skies painting session. We're going to spend about an hour and a half. Once again, yesterday was about an hour and a half. Once we get started with the actual painting piece of this, we're going to take about an hour and a half to finish the painting. Okay, the way that we're going to approach this is we're going to take a few moments to assess. Always take a few moments to assess where you are on the piece, especially if you're coming back and looking at it with fresh eyes after you've left, you've maybe stopped for a little bit. You want to look at it again and assess everything. Just kind of look at it, and maybe you don't really have to think about much. You just look, use your eyes and see if there's anything that's glaringly off, something that's sticking out and you're like, oh my gosh, I hadn't even noticed that before. So that's the very first thing you want to do. So really quickly, I kind of take a step back. I look at the piece and decide whether I'm happy with it, whether there are things that I need to adjust before I continue. And I'm generally pretty happy with the piece. It's really close to the original, minus a couple of minor things. For example, some of the areas in here down towards the bottom of my lights near the horizon are a little bit more intense. They're more defined, which I have to decide early on whether I want to keep this as is or whether I want to go ahead and add that kind of definition over here. And I may do that. I'm not sure yet. I haven't decided at the moment, but we'll see here in just a little bit. I'm getting a weird message here on Facebook, so let me make sure that we are good. Hold on one second. Give me a second. Bear with me, everyone. I'm getting a message that says that I am temporarily blocked, but I still see myself and I see the video on the page. So I think we're good. I just can't see any of the comments from Facebook. I see the comments from YouTube, but not Facebook. So bear with me a second. Here we go. Interactivity. Maybe that's where no, nothing there, nothing there. Insights. Okay. Let's click on that. Let me just take a few seconds here to try to figure this out. I can't see any of the comments from Facebook, so that's a little strange. Maybe they'll come back, and I don't want to do too much because I may accidentally kick us out, and we don't want to do that. So where are you, feed? Come on. Okay, I'm going to go through this without answering comments from Facebook. I do apologize. Hopefully this is just a temporary thing. Here we go. All right. Fantastic. Okay, here we go. Kay Campbell says, hello there. I was watching part 1 again. Happy Sunday, everyone. Nicolene says, I still see you. Awesome, Nicolene. Thank you so much. Tracy from the UK. All right. Okay, so now I can see the comments on Facebook. Had me a little scared there for a moment. Before I continue, I'm going to go ahead and switch the video, the size of my screen, so that, there we go. So you guys have a good view of what I'm doing here on my canvas. So again, first step, we're talking about the first step. We assess, look at it and go, okay, what, if anything, needs to be changed, or maybe it's spot on. As I mentioned already, I may go in here and define the edges of my Aurora here against the horizon line a little bit, but I can save that for later. It's not anything crucial that has to be done right now. If I decide I want to do that, do the change, I'll go and do that towards the end, because it's in an area that isn't going to change as I continue painting along and adding the other elements. So those are all parts of the assessment process. Okay, you look at it, look for things that maybe need to be addressed before you continue. But if there's something that you're not sure about and it can wait, you can do that. You can leave it for later. Okay? So first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add color to the hills or the mountains off in the distance. We're going to go ahead and add a second layer of paint. For those of you that joined me yesterday, we did this. We did the first layer of paint on the mountains, and we left everything a little bit. What's the word I'm looking for? Unfinished. First layers usually they're blotchy. They're a little bit translucent, transparent. So we have that in the mountain range back there. I'm going to go ahead and paint a second layer over the top of that. Then we're going to go through and define the reflection in the water of the same hills. Okay. So for those of you that didn't join me yesterday, part 1 is available. Okay. It was recorded and you can go back and watch that. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put out some primary blue on my plate. Okay. Again, I'm using a plate here for my palette. So we're going to start with a little bit of that. We're also going to throw in a little bit of black. Same brushes as yesterday. I'll go through them here in just a second. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of white to my plate. I don't know that I'm going to need it for this step, but just in case, I'm going to go and put it on my plate. So there's my plate with the 3 colors that I'm going to be likely using on this step. Okay. Next thing, let's talk about those brushes. Once again, just as a recap, I've got a big 1-inch flat brush. This one's not going to see any use today, although I might use it for something I don't think it's likely, but I have it just in case. Then I have a 1-inch flat brush, sorry, 1/2-inch flat. Okay, this one will get some use today. 1/2-inch flat. I've got a number 4 flat, small brush. This one will definitely get some use today. I've got my number 2 flat. This one will definitely get some use today. And the other brush that I didn't show you guys yesterday because I didn't have it over in with my brushes is this number 0 skinny finger brush. It's a little pointy thing. We use this one for details. Okay, so those are the brushes that I'm using today. Of course, paper towels, very important. I've got 2 rinse cups. As I mentioned yesterday, especially if you're newer to painting, you want your brushes sitting in water, especially after you've put paint on them. After you've used them, they definitely need to go back in the water cup so that they do not dry out. I've already showed you 3 of the colors that I'm going to be using. The other colors, just like yesterday, we got some light green, some yellow, and I think that's it. So green, yellow, white, black, blue, and I think that's it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We got 5 palettes. That's correct, Angie. It's also called. It's actually called a round brush. This one's more. So there's liner brush, lighter and round brushes, and they're similar. Liner brushes tend to be skinnier, and typically the bristles are longer. Typically, round brushes tend to have a little bit more of a little shorter, and they have a round kind of base and they taper into a little point. So, but they are similar. They're used for similar things. Okay, so with all that being said, folks, again in the comments, please let me know where you're joining from. You know, if you're a first timer and you didn't say hello yesterday, Or maybe you painted with a recorded session yesterday and you're on the live for the first time today. Say hello. Let me know where you're joining us from. And feel free to ask questions. Don't be shy. If anything doesn't make sense, let's talk about it. Okay, here's my number 4 flat. We're going to start with this. Okay, we're going to go ahead and take some blue, add a little bit of black to it. We want a nice dark blue for this. Not super dark, but pretty dark. I'm also going to take just a smidge of white. There we go. I just decided. What the white is going to do is it's going to make it a little bit lighter, but it's going to give it a little bit of a gray color because it mixes in with the black to create a slight bit of a gray color. It also makes the color a bit chalky. And for things that are off in the distance, you want there to be a little bit of that, almost like there's a lack of color, drabness to it because it's off in the distance. So that's what I'm doing right in here. And if you notice, once again, like yesterday, I'm painting different directions. I don't want my mountain range to be super smooth. I want it to have a bit of texture to create that by painting in one direction and then another. And then I didn't fully mix my color on the palette. So there's a little bit more blue in some parts, there's a little bit more black in others. And so when I apply that paint to the canvas, those subtle differences create some neat effects that make the mountain range look realistic. If it's all one flat color, it won't make as much sense. So we use that. Brush strokes in different directions, make them a little choppy. Some of them could be a little longer, some shorter, but also the variation and the mixture of the color. It's going to help create the elements of realness, those elements of realness that we're looking for. What's happening, Penny? How are you? Thank you for painting today. Are you painting today, Penny, or are you just hanging out watching? Sheila, what's happening? She says, oh my gosh, I have to remember the color mix that I did. Yeah, that is a tough part. When you mix colors, you mix a variety of colors to create a particular hue, and you need to go back and mix more of that. Trying to color match can be pretty tricky. All right, who else is on here with us today? Myra, how's it going, Myra? Sherry, what's happening today, Sherry? All right, so we got a few people on here. Not as big of a group as yesterday, probably because not everybody finished part 1, or it's Sunday and you're busy doing stuff. But welcome to all of you that are joining in today for part 2. Myra says, hello from, see if I can pronounce this right, Abbotsford, Canada. What's happening, Myra? Welcome to you. All right, so mountain range. Let me give you guys a close-up. Okay, there's that mountain range, and that's a pretty good color. Okay, the main thing that we're looking for with that mountain range is for it to look like it's further back in the distance. And we do that by not having a lot of detail in it, by making it look a little bit, a tiny bit washed out. And we do that by adding the white to the paint to make it look a little bit kind of, washed out a bit. So the other thing that we want to do now is go ahead and reflection in the water, add some of the same paint. What I've done though is I dipped my brush in the water, brought some of that over, thinned out the paint. Now what I'm going to do is grab my brush, pull it. Instead of using those long or the short, choppy brush strokes, I'm going to just use long brush strokes to smooth it out. This is a reflection in the water. You're not going to see a lot of detail. It's nighttime. Although sky, surrounding scenes The surrounding scene is pretty well lit, so you can see a lot of the reflections in the water. There isn't going to be a lot of definition. So I'm just smoothing this across. Pretty basic, nothing fancy there. So I've got a little tiny gap, barely visible, between the actual mountain ridge and the reflection. See that there's a little tiny bit of a gap right in between. Okay, eventually, and it's not complete. It's not a thorough space that's the same all the way across. It varies a little bit. But what I'm going to use that for later is we're going to add a bit of a light, kind of it's almost like where the water's washing up against the shore. You see it reflecting more of the light because it's foamy. It's breaking up against that shore. So we're going to have a slight bit of we're going to use a slight bit of light to to highlight that. That makes this look more like water. It helps add that little detail that you can see in water when you're seeing an opposite shore, right? Where it's breaking up against that shore, you see the white, the foaminess of the water reflecting more of the light. So, but anyway, that's what that gap is kind of there for. Next thing we're going to do, same brush. We're taking our time, everybody. We're not going nice and easy, but we don't want to go too slow. I'm going to take a little bit of my blue. I got some water over here. I'm also going to just raise the value a little bit. It's called raising the value. For those of you that are newer to painting, when you add black or white to a color, you're changing the value. In this case, we're making this lighter by adding some white to it. And it's watered down, pretty watered down paint. I'm going to take this and really light. I'm removing a lot of the paint from my brush. I don't need to have a lot of paint on it. I'm going to bring this across the lighter part of the water. This is going to have reflections in it, right? The yellows that you see over here and the greens. Actually, when I put yellow on top of this, it's going to look a little green. But I'm just making this a little bit darker now. I can also maybe take a little bit of this darker stuff and maybe add just a few little streaks in here. I'm using the skinny part of my brush. Okay, I'm doing this. And they're really light. There's little streaks in my water. That are going to make it look like maybe it's peaceful water, doesn't have a lot of movement to it, but some movement to it. So these little tiny lines are creating some of that. Okay, it's close up. Real subtle. Don't stress too much about this step. For those of you that are newer painters, okay, remember, you want to be patient with yourself. Be kind to yourself. Understand that there's a process. Very few people start off doing amazing paintings. Okay, it is something that you build up over time, through experience, through experimentation, and through learning. Okay, so if you're struggling, it is very normal to be struggling. Even if you're an intermediate or more advanced painter, that's okay. Struggle is part of the process. Embrace it. Be okay with it. It's going to help you get better as you go. Let's see. Sherry says, I noticed my water and shadow is a little. Oh, what you mean? Okay, so you don't have a lot of space down here, Sherry? Yeah, you don't need a lot of space for the foreground. You can have it if you want. You can have foreground way down here. Your tent can sit down here, right? Doesn't have to be as high as mine. Okay, it could be lower. This could be fairly low. Maybe you have more water in your scene. That's perfectly fine. Okay. Let me check. Let me check on my YouTube folk. Ultramarine, Angie for yeah, ultramarine marine is a good choice. That's a good color. It has more purple in it. But yeah, absolutely, that works. That is a good color option. I'm still using this is my primary blue. Okay, primary blue, and I've got some Mars black over here. Not that that's really important, just for those of you that maybe have those colors. Maybe that's something that's important to you to have the same colors that I'm using. Okay, time to define, draw our foreground, some of the elements in the foreground. For that, I'm going to use my little liner brush. Okay, so round brush. I sometimes interchange liner and round brush. I call them the same thing. They're not exactly the same. This is a round brush, just to clarify. What I'm going to do once again, take some of my blue. I'm going to mix in some black. I want this fairly dark. It's not black. It is a really, really dark blue. Because I'm going to do a little bit of drawing, I'm going to add a bit of water. The water helps that paint stick to the canvas. Okay, and then the other thing I want to do is I'm going to take my brush, I press it up against the plate. When I'm ready to start applying this paint to the canvas, spin this brush. That helps make the point a little bit skinnier. Now, doesn't have to be super precise. Okay, again, don't stress. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start to draw the edge. You see above here? I'm going to draw that. I'm going to start right over here. This comes up a little bit. We have some trees there later. Ours does not have to match mine exactly. Remember that, okay? Don't stress too much if it doesn't look just like mine. Differences, that's okay too. So I know we're going to have a tent over here. I'm going to leave a little space. I don't know how big my tent's going to be yet. When I paint the colors for the tent, I don't want to have to struggle with painting over this really dark line that I'm going to have there. So I'm going to leave a gap about what I think the width of that tent is going to be so that I don't struggle as much. I'm going to make my job a little bit easier by leaving that gap. I do have a really light line here that I added yesterday, but that one's going to be easy to cover up. Okay, so gap, come across, continue on the other side. This goes up and then drops back down and then kind of does that. There is nothing fancy to this. You don't need a ruler. You don't need to sit there and measure anything. You just have the outline of your little foreground. It's all you're really creating. Don't overthink it. Just put down something that looks like a foreground that's going to work for you. Okay, in the front over here, we have a couple of rocks. Now, we're going to wait. We're going to leave. We're not going to put the rocks in just yet. The reason I just decided that is I just realized that for some of you, if you don't have enough space for your tent and you put down rocks, you're going to kind of run into a problem with trying to fit your tent in between the rocks and the edge of your foreground. So we're going to leave the rocks for later. Okay? Sounds good, Sherry. I'm sure yours is going to look fantastic. So let's see. Sheila's asking. So the top is supposed to be a bit lighter than the bottom. Are you? Which part are you talking about, Sheila? Sorry. Can you clarify what part of the painting you're referencing? What's happening, Joe? Morning, sweethearts from Campbell River, Vancouver Island. BC, Canada. What's happening, Joe? Thank you so much for leaving a comment. I love it. Wanda, what's happening? How are you? Absolutely, my pleasure. Thank you for joining in. Mountains. So so only in that little space between the reflection and the water. So this would be this cool line in here is where I would add in the water. Now you don't need to have that. Let me clarify. I was just explaining why I have it. In case somebody notices if there's a little gap, and it just helps me realize where my water, the edge of my water is. It's not necessary. You can add if this is all one solid color for you, all the way down to there. You can always just lighten that when we add that little part in there. Okay, so it's not crucial. I'm just kind of explaining why I have that. Okay, and that you can use that for those of you that choose to use that. You can use have that. You can use it to help you with that piece of the painting. Okay, so what's next? We're going to go ahead and add a little bit of color in here. Some white, some blue, even a little touch of green. So on my plate, I'm going to go ahead and add a bit of green, this light green that I've got. Okay, now that is not something that you have to do. I'll explain why I'm adding green here in a second. So take my blue, I'm going to come over here, mix some of my white, and I'm going to throw in a little bit of my green. So I left the floor, this foreground is a little bit ambiguous as to what it is. It could be snow. Okay, this could be snowfall, but it could also be ground just reflecting the lights in the sky. Maybe the sky's bright enough, maybe this is lighter colored sand or dirt, and so it's reflecting a lot of the colors in the sky. But there's a little tiny bit of green in there, here in the blue, and so this mixture was made using white, blue, touch, small touch of green, and even a tiny bit of black. So that's why I'm adding just a little bit of green. It's almost imperceptible, meaning you can't look at it and go, "Oh, yeah, there's green in there." Some of you might be a little tricky to see. I did throw a tiny bit of green in there. Okay, so some more white. I'm going to throw in a little bit of this darker mixture, just maybe even a smidge of black. And I'm saying a smidge. When you're adding black, got to be really careful that you don't overdo it because it will overpower your color really quickly. So here we go. I'll start right in here. I'm using my half-inch flat brush, and I'm not looking for an even color. I'm spreading this. Some areas are going to get more of this. Some areas are going to get a little less. Some of it's going to look a little darker. Some of it's going to look a little lighter. All good. And you notice I didn't add any water to this. I wanted this to be nice and thick. And I'm going to go ahead and spread it, spread it, spread it. We will come back and define this a little bit more in a bit. Once this is dry, we'll come in with other colors over this. Okay. So for now, though, just making sure you're spreading that across. Maybe I'll put a little bit of the white put in here to lighten up some of this color. Just a little too bright, but we'll make it work. I'm just blending it right in here, right on the canvas. I'm doing my blending or mixing my colors. All right, everybody. I don't think I did a little cheers, a little toast to all of you that are hanging out today. So, cheers to all of us painting today. May we all enjoy the session. May we all create some amazing pieces. And most of all, though, maybe we all enjoy the sessions 100%. Okay, that is the goal. Have fun. Secondary is to create a piece that you like. But first and foremost, the goal should be to have fun. Okay, maybe the second is to learn if you're in the learning process, and then third would be to produce a painting that is something that you're happy with, be willing to hang on a wall or give as a gift. So, but number one goal is to enjoy yourselves. So please, if you're stressing a bit about this, just try to relax. Okay. Also, don't forget, if you're new to the page, if you don't want to miss out on the events that I have on here, you want to make sure you're following the page, like the page, and also join the Painting with Jesse email list, which I forgot to post a link to. I meant to do that yesterday. I'm going to post a link to that on the event page, on this event page here when we're all done, and then I'll also post to it on the main feed on the discussion board, or the main page on the Painting with Jesse page. Okay. But to all of us. Drinking a little cold water today. Okay, next step, same brush. Now what I'm going to do, excuse me, is I'm going to take a little bit more black, a little more blue. I'm going to mix it right here up in this corner where we have this mixture that we just used for the area down at the bottom. I'm going to mix this all. I want to try and preserve some of this, so I have a color reference. I come back and mix it again. Yeah, a little bit more white. Okay, so I have a darkish blue color, but it isn't thoroughly mixed. I got some variation in here. In other words, I didn't completely blend those colors together. So I'm going to come in here now, go ahead and start to produce some of the shadow areas, some of the dark parts in the back. I'm using the skinny part of my brush. I'm not going to go too high right here just yet. I'll come back and adjust this as needed. Right in here, I'm not going to go too high up. This is higher up. I'm not going to do that here just yet. So come across to the other side. Right in here. And then once again, right here, I'm going to pull just like I did on the other side. I'm using the skinny part of my brush. Come in and come back out. I'll take a little bit more black, a little bit more blue, just making a deeper color in here. And maybe right here where my trees are going to be. The trees are creating shadows, so we'll add some of that in here. Right over here, we have the same thing, a little bit of shadow under the trees. Okay, and then over here towards the edges where it's the darkest. We'll give you a close-up. Okay, let's go back to the top. Move our way down. All right. Again, if you guys have any questions about anything, don't be shy. Put them in the comments. Let me know something that you need clarity on. There's no such thing as a dumb question, especially if you're new to this. You're going to have lots of questions. So please put them in the comments. Then the other thing I wanted to say, as you guys are working on this part, is that even though this is a beginner-friendly session, I think I mentioned this yesterday, what makes a beginner-friendly more than anything else is the speed that we're going through doing these steps. I'm providing a little extra clarity. Also, while you're always able to ask questions on my sessions, this is especially tailored for those of you that are newer to painting. You have some questions, put them in the comments. More than happy to answer your questions around painting. Okay, so again, don't be put your question in the comments if you have one, and if you put a question down in there and I don't answer you, it's probably because I didn't see it. It'll be because I didn't see it. So put your question in there, especially if you asked a question earlier and I didn't see it, you can ask it again. Okay. But okay, now what am I going to do? This right in here, we're going to add a little bit more. I'm actually going to switch brushes. I'm going to go grab my number 4 flat brush, this little guy here. Okay. Now, I've still got some of this dark color that we just used for the edges. I want to make it a little bit lighter, but not too light. Have kind of a grayish blue. And I don't have a lot of paint on here, but what I want to do is, it's a little too dark, so let's see, a little too light. A little bit more blue also. I'm just going to use this color to come in here and go. Watch how I'm using this brush. I'm just creating streaks, shadows, almost like what we did in the water down in here, a little bit. Watch how I'm using my brush, how I hold it. There's blues everywhere besides what I'm talking about, besides the things that come out of my mouth. What I'm doing visually, what you can see me doing, the way I hold the brush, the way I place it up against the canvas, those are all clues that you can use to help guide you. I just took a little more white, brought it over here, kind of mixed it in. So if you're a good observer, that will take you really far also. It's not just about listening to me, you also want to be paying attention to what I'm not saying. I think I've said this before, but I believe you can learn as much just from watching somebody, just from observing them, than you can from listening to them. Okay, there we go. Once again, a little close up. All right. You guys want to know what's next? We're painting in some trees. Trees. It can be pretty tough for lots of people. It's one of the most difficult things for some people to pick up on. I'm going to show you some pretty basic steps in creating these types of pine trees. What helps these trees is they're in silhouette, mostly in silhouette. So they're usually easier if you're creating a full-on tree that has shadows and lights or shadows and highlights and all sorts of depth. So all sorts of depth. This has a little bit of depth to it, but primarily these are pine trees in silhouette. Okay. Now, if you're unsure of how you're going to do on this step with the trees, watch what I do and then practice on a scratch piece of paper, on canvas. You can take a plate, practice on the plate before you actually apply it to whatever surface you're painting on. Okay, if you go straight to the canvas and you're struggling, that can be frustrating. Okay, so maybe practice first. So black, we're going to start with some black. Bring it over here to my plate on the edge where I haven't added any color yet. I am also going to mix some blue. This is mostly, though, going to be a pretty dark, black, deep blue. For all intents and purposes, this is black. If you didn't know that I was mixing blue in here, you would think this was black, unless you looked really closely and maybe you're right. The other thing that I want to do is I want to make sure I'm taking my brush, dipping it in my water, and bringing it over here. As I've already mentioned, water helps your paint flow a little bit better. And it helps that paint stick to your canvas. Okay, so once I've got my mixture the way that I want it, I'm going to go ahead and use my brush. I press it down like this on both sides. What that does is it thins out the bristles, brings them close together, it sandwiches them together. Okay. Next thing that I'm going to do, picking one tree at a time. I'm going to start with this one right here. Actually, yeah, I'll start with that. Usually, I'll work from right to left, especially if I'm over to the side like this at an angle. I would do my elements on the right first, and move over to the left. The reason for that is if I start here, sometimes when I come across and start painting on stuff over here, I can't accidentally put my hand in it and things like that. Not in this case, it doesn't matter. My angle's a little bit different. I'm not quite close like I usually am, so it doesn't make a big difference. But hi, Maria. Thank you so much. Maria Nicholas, thank you. So first thing I'm going to do, I sandwich my brush like this so that the bristles come together. And the other thing I want to do is I don't want to have too much paint on my brush. Ooh, I'm looking at my brush and it's got a little bristle that's sticking out further. I may have to switch this out. We'll see. I got a little bristle that's kind of hanging out and might interfere with my process. So right here, this guy right here. I'm going to come up here. I'm using my finger here to help stabilize my hand. I'm pressing it right up to the canvas. This is all dry. I'm able to do this without running into any problems. But I'm going to come up. I'm going to go ahead and little skinny line. I'm going to bring this down all the way down here to the edge of my foreground, right? My floor. Okay, so now from there, I'm going to add a bit more water to my paint because I can see that it needs a little bit more water. When I applied that little line, it didn't flow as well as I would like it to. So a little more water. And then here we go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to use, and I'm saying I'm going to try because my brush is a little bit like I mentioned, my brush has these bristles that are sticking out now. It's like it's damaged a bit. So I may have to switch it out. But we're going to go ahead and give it a shot. What I want to do is try to use the corner here of the brush. As an alternative, for those of you that have these little round brushes or these liner brushes, you can start the tree with one of these. Okay? Maybe I'll show you on one of the other trees how to use one of these brushes. But we start with this on all the trees anyway. Okay, for the little line here, this is what I'm using. So here we go. So I'm just using the little tiny corner of my brush. And there's a bit of randomness to this. I'm not trying to control every bit of my tree. I've been trying to do this upstairs. See if I can show you guys like this. See a little shot. I'm going to go. And all I'm doing is coming down, light touches. Really light. I'm working my way downwards. Again, if you're not sure about this, maybe practice first. Okay, it's all I'm doing is slowly working my way down. I'm kind of dabbing. I go side to side. The tree does not have to be symmetrical. I don't have to have the exact same points. Remember when you were kids? I'm not sure if you remember in school, we would draw those Christmas trees where they were pretty symmetrical. You want to avoid that. You have some symmetry in nature, but it isn't perfectly symmetrical, not in a tree anyway. So now I'm just going to work my way down. And I'm getting a little bit wider as I make my way down. Some areas are going to be a little fuller than others. Also, the other thing that I'm doing is I'm pressing a little harder as I'm working my way down, and the tree's getting wider. Okay, it's getting thicker. So here's what I'm doing. As I'm coming down, I'm just using more of my brush. Whereas up here, I was just using the bare edges, the very little skinny edge down here. I'm able to use more of it. Press it down a little harder. And I know it's hard to see it up against the backdrop of the mountains and the water, but it'll make sense. Especially down here where it gets a little lighter. Okay, now I like my tree. I look at it and I go, yeah, that's a pretty good tree. I like it. Now I'm going to go back. It's a little on the light side. It's not as dark as I want it to be, so I'm adding more black to it. It's a little transparent also. Now I am going to go ahead and switch brushes. Give me a second, everyone. I'm going to grab one of my other number twos. Give me a second. It's pretty funny, but I didn't take my glasses. I didn't bring my glasses in here. So when I went over to look at my small brushes, I couldn't quite see the right size. I'm getting to where I'm a little bit nearsighted. Farsighted? Farsighted is where you can see from a distance, right? Better when you can up close. Yes, so up close, I have a little bit of a hard time. Um, so anyway, grabbed another one here, another brush. It's a little bit smaller than the other number two. This is also a number two, but different manufacturers. There's not like a universal perfect size for all of our brushes. That is another thing you're going to notice, that when you go looking for brushes, a number four, for example, of one brand isn't exactly the same size as the number four of another brand. They do vary. All right, so I'm just going to just going back over some of these areas on my tree. I'm not doing it for every single part of the tree, but most of it. I just want my tree to be darker. Okay, good, looking good, looking good. Next thing I want to do is I'm just going to define the edge of here, a little point on top, define this a little more. So I'm trying to do this without blocking the view of the camera. So all I'm doing is this, coming up here, defining that maybe. Okay, so here's the tree from top to bottom. Okay. Next tree. We're moving on to the next tree. So same mixture, same colors. I'm just remixing the same thing. So same black, a little bit of blue, some water, and here we go. We don't forget to press down on your brush to make it nice and pointy. We're gonna go with this little guy right here. I'm gonna start this one right about here. Again, I'm trying to do this. You can almost see what I'm doing. So I have to do this. Here we go. All right, now we're going to go again using the corner of my brush. I'm going to start just dabbing my way down. Again, everyone, watch how I'm doing this. Just kind of use your eyes to also see what it is that's going on. These are trees that are silhouette, so they don't require a lot of detail. The main thing that's important is the shape. And again, I realize that they get a little lost. The tree gets lost here against the mountain backdrop. You get the idea. We're getting a little thicker here as we get down to the base. I'm pressing a little harder, using most of the brush now, or a big part of the brush. Okay. Now we're moving on to the other trees across on the other side. Let this dry a little bit. We'll come back, maybe add some more touches. I see a little bit of it's a little transparent here and there, so we'll come back to that one too. Let me grab a bit more black. Fantastic, Sherry. So Sherry said she added a bit of green to her tree, and she also used an angle brush. So an angle brush is excellent for making trees also. So just because I'm showing you trees with a flat brush or a round brush doesn't mean that you can't do these with other brushes. Absolutely. There's all sorts of different approaches to get similar results. Again, you want to experiment. And if you're having a hard time seeing your trees against the backdrop of your colors, throw in green, just like Sherry did. That's good. That's a good option. Throw some green in there and add a little bit of contrast. Whoops. I'll grab some of that black and bring it over. Thank you, Sherry. Perfect. So black, blue, and we mix them up, creating that really deep, dark black color, or dark blue color. And it doesn't, you really don't have to add blue either. You can use just black. So there are always options, always options. Big tree over here, the tall one. We're going to go about right here. Using the other canvas, I'm putting my finger against the other canvas to help stabilize my hand. The thing with skinny lines, a lot of times people will try and grab a brush like, whoops, not that one, like a round brush or a liner brush to make skinny lines or straight skinny lines. But you're usually better off with an angle brush or a flat brush that comes together really tight at the top because all those extra bristles add some stability to your brush stroke. I just realized I made this tree a little bit slightly instead of straight up, and that's okay. Not a big deal. Again, using the corners of my brush, especially here at the top. So who struggles with trees? Put it in the comments. Do you have a hard time with trees? Have you mastered trees? I know there's all sorts of trees out there. Just because we master palm trees doesn't mean, we're good at making weeping willows or oak trees or whatever. But maybe you've mastered lots of different trees, or maybe you struggle with them. You're kind of, I'm not too sure. So again, working our way down, we start to get a little heavier on the brush. More. Don't forget to assess your piece. After this tree, I'm just going to take a little step back and look at it. See how I'm getting along in my piece, with my piece. Okay. All right, looks like things are looking pretty good. I'm liking the way this is going. I'm just going to go ahead and jump to this other tree. Mixing a bit more paint. A little bit more water, so I take my brush in there. Press on both sides, flip the brush, and then this one's a little shorter. We'll go about here. If you hear me get quiet, it's because I'm concentrating. I've already explained the process, so just repeating. Similar steps to the other three trees, so all right. I have another tree over here on this side, kind of peeking its way in throughout. So I'm just gonna pretend, not pretend. I'm gonna go ahead and match it. Got another little tree just kind of peeking through on the side here. Just a little tiny bit of the tree peeking around that edge. You don't need to do that if you don't want to. If you don't have room for it, or you don't have to do that. Okay, but I am going to go back and grab some more black, and I'm going to go ahead and add more color to those trees just to make them a bit more solid. Some more black, a little bit of blue. I'll start with this one. Especially down here. So again, this second layer is just to make the tree stand out. Bear with me a second, everyone. I have an alarm that's about to go off on my phone. And I have a screaming child inside the house. If you hear a little screaming, it's my little girl. I can hear her through the garage door. All right, I'm back over here. All right, things are looking good. Here's a little close up. Now, when we add the highlights to those trees, they're going to stand out. Okay, we have highlights. Let me show you on the original highlights on the edges that make them stand out. In just a moment, we're going to go ahead and start adding in the tent. I know you guys look forward to that. Tent can be a little bit intimidating. I get it. Wanda says, yes, my trees look pathetic. I'm sure they're fine. One simple ones. They're so much fun. Yep, simple ones are relaxing. You know, there's a lot of fun involved. It's easier to have fun when they're not so difficult. Definitely. Sheila says a picture with a weeping willow would be fun, stressful but fun. Sheila, got a question for you. What painting do you not stress on? You. What painting do you not stress on? So Sheila used to paint with me in person quite a bit when I was doing lots of person painting sessions. Sheila would come to them, and Sheila's a pretty talented artist, but she stresses a lot, or at least she used to. Maybe not anymore. What do you say, Sheila? Where are you in the stress level? Let's see, Angie. So, yep. So the trees, just to kind of clarify, the trees are skinnier on top, and they get a little whiter as they come down. Okay? A little whiter as they come down. As far as the mixture, it's the only blue that I've been using, the black. I'm sorry, the primary blue. Okay, so you can probably also use some light blue, mix it with black, something kind of close, but I'm using primary blue, which is pretty deep blue with black for those trees. All right, so, all right, everyone, 1 minute, and we're going to go ahead and start painting those, start painting that tent. Okay, so you guys got about a minute, 30 seconds before we go ahead and get into that. Good questions and comments, everybody. I love it. Let's continue interacting that way. Don't stress out if you have a question. Please put it down. If you had a question earlier and I didn't see it, put it in the comments again. Sheila says you also can't hear me telling you, wait, slow down. Oh my God, that's funny. Yes, yes. I remember getting flashbacks, Sheila. But I'm sure you're going to be painting. Your painting's going to turn out fantastic. They usually do. Okay, time for the tent. So again, we're using a mixture similar See what's in the trees for this first step. Maybe a little bit lighter. So I can take my blue once again, bring it over, mix in some black, but I'm also going to take a little bit of my white, which I need to put more on the plate. Take a little bit of white to raise the value a little bit. So mostly blue and black with a little bit of white. It's a deep blue still deep, nice deep color. Now I'm using my number 2 flat for this. If you're more comfortable, you can use the little round brush, a little liner brush. Actually, I'm going to switch to this. Oh, and I just remembered I told you guys I was going to show you how to use these on the tree, and I forgot that part. That's okay. Maybe on another one in the future we'll use the little round brushes for that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the sketch. I'm going to sketch out the tent. And the tent is not very large, maybe about an inch and a half. Again, I'm working on an 8 by 10 inch canvas. It's maybe about an inch and a half across. So I can start. I'm going to start with the top part of my tent, this angled area right here. Okay. And as you can see, it's not a perfect line. It could be on yours, but mine's slightly curved. So right up here, I'll keep my mountain range, or the edge of the mountain. Oh, I know you can't see that. I'm going to add a little bit more white to that part just so it's easy to see against the background. There we go. So this is the edge of the top of my tent. Okay, I'm going to continue with this color for now. Maybe it needs to come up, maybe it needs to be a little bit more angled. But from right about here, I'm going to come down and do this. So we've got 2 lines doing this, kind of like almost a 90 degree angle, but it's not like this. It's like this, right? This right here is this part of the tent, the top, and then the front left part, the far left side, or far right side, I guess, it depends on which your perspective is. Okay, from here we're going to go like this. We're going to come down and bring this up a little higher. And come down, do the back part. I'll give you guys a close-up in a moment. Okay, does that. So here's what I did. Far side, here's the top, the back. Now I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the darker color. Contrast against the lighter floor. Then I'm going to go like this. That is the outline of the tent. The outer parts of all of that tent. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and so just to clarify, we have this right here is this part here, of course, is the bottom back part, side part. Then it comes up, and my angle needs a little bit of work, so let me fix that right now. This needs a little more of an angle. So just making a correction right there. I don't need to erase anything, remove paint. This is all going to get covered up when I paint over all of this, right? So we're just working on the outline, complete outline of the tent. Next thing that we're going to do, so this line right here, this big blue line, we're going to connect the point here. This part here, we're going to connect it to this corner over here. Nothing fancy right there. Thank you, Barker. Diana Barker, thank you so much. Coyote. I see that. Really cool spelling of that. If it's coyote or coyote, what is that? I know it's going to be a little hard to explain, but cool name. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. And the Diana says, will there be a Halloween painting? I saw your glow in the dark last Halloween. Love it. There will be. So I actually did, we did 2 Halloween sessions last year. We did, that was actually the Day of the Dead. The one we saw from yesterday's reel was from the Day of the Dead. We did a 3 days or 2 days of Day of the Dead. I don't remember now. And then we did a Halloween one as well. We did a 9 days of Halloween. So each day we had one painting. I think it ended up being like instead of 9 paintings, it ended up being 7 paintings. It was a really hectic schedule to maintain. It started out 9 days of Halloween, and I think we did something like 7 paintings. So, but we'll be doing Halloween that time of year, Day of the Dead, Halloween. All that's my favorite time of year. Most definitely something around those dates. So keep your eye out. So a couple of Halloweens ago, let me show you guys really quickly. For those of you that maybe weren't with us at the time, but a couple of Halloweens ago, I did this. Let me. Sorry for the interlude, everybody. Quick little. Uh, I did this. We did this. This was the 3 days of Halloween. This was 2 years ago. This piece also has glow in the dark paint, glows under black light. This is a really fun one. This was 2 years ago. Okay. So we'll be doing something. Halloween, like I said, is my favorite time of year, and so we can't neglect doing a Halloween session. So for sure. All right. So let's add some paint to our tent. We're getting there, folks. We're getting really close to the final touches and all of this. Okay. So just hang in there if you're struggling. If you are struggling and you are unhappy with your painting, please don't quit. Maybe you don't need to. You should push yourself to finish it. As I mentioned in yesterday's part 1, by by finishing difficult pieces that you struggle with, you become a better painter. At the end of it, you'll have gained some new skills. Even if you felt or feel like your painting wasn't successful, you will come out a better painter in the end. So if you are struggling with this, if you're not happy with what's going on at the moment with your piece, keep going. Don't give up. Okay? That perseverance and that patience will pay off. So yellow, colors for the tent. Okay, I got some yellow. I've got some blue that I'm going to be using. Same blue, right? Primary blue. Perhaps a little white. So bear with me a second while I get these colors on the plate again. Okay. My little number 2 flat brush, what I'm going to be using for this. I'm going to take some yellow and mix this combination. It's going to turn the color a little bit green. That's okay. Some white. So we got a bit of a kind of a weird fluorescent light green. This is the base color that we're going to be using on our tent. So we're going to go like this. Remember, we're going to be building up in layers, just like every other process in this painting. So this is the first layer. Now I'm coming right up to my edge, but I leave some of that dark outline of the drawing part of this. Don't forget, everyone, if you guys aren't following the page and you're enjoying yourselves, you don't want to miss out on future sessions, make sure you follow the page, like the page. You get alerts from Facebook whenever I post about something new events. Also, if you see my links to add yourself to the Painting with Jesse email list, I do email the list every time I've scheduled a new painting session. Okay, so this is what we got so far. Just a kind of a greenish base color. Now, we're going to start to add some variations. Oh, that sounds like fun, Cherry. I'm trying to remember. Have I been? Oh, I have been to Disneyland on Halloween. Okay. Yep, here you go, guys. Here's the close-up of the tent. So another way to look at this is a triangle. Okay, slightly kind of turned like this a little bit, right? So instead of the base being straight across, you have it at a slight angle. And then you just add two lines to the triangle, this one and that one, and then you connect them. This goes out a little further than this one, and you connect them. So it's a triangle, line that goes back, line that goes back, and connect them. All right, so next, same brush, maybe clean it a little bit, remove some of that paint. I'm going to grab some yellow now, right up here. The glowing part. So watch where I'm applying this paint, okay? Watch where this paint is going. So I didn't bring, I kept it primarily, mostly concentrated up near the top of the tent. Now I'm going to pull a little bit. There's very little of the yellow paint left on my brush, but I'm going to lightly pull it down just a little bit. So that while the concentration of it is up here, there is still some little residual light glow, which is what we're creating down towards the bottom. And we'll do a little bit of that over here too, a little bit. And so once again, a little bit of yellow, just kind of. I just grabbed more yellow is all I did. Brush. Yeah, turn it, use different parts of it. Okay. So now a little bit of white, and mix it with my yellow, a little bit of my yellow, this area open at the top of the plate. So I'm creating really bright yellow. And up here. Remember, everyone, we are our own worst critics. So, don't stress too much if you're sitting there struggling a bit. It's okay. Don't beat yourself up. Just enjoy the process. Okay, switching brushes real quick. This one, the little bristles that are sticking out are getting in the way. So just switched over to the other number 2. I need a little bit more precision. So the way that I envision this tent is there's a light source inside of it. You've got a lantern or something, and it's hanging near the top of the corner. So that's where the light is taking from. So it's peeking through. Now I'm going to grab just white. Just picked up just white. You don't need a lot of it though. Take this and I'm apply it right up here. What you're creating, what you're trying to create, is a light source that is brightest up in this area near the top. And as it's dissipating out throughout the tent, it becomes less intense. Okay? That is the goal here. Probably the trickiest part of the entire painting. Okay, a little close up. Thank you, Parvin. How are you? Thank you so much. Wonderful tip, Sherry. So Sherry says, I used to constantly clean my palette, and now I don't because the mixtures stay there as long as they're not dried out, and you continue using those mixtures. Yep, absolutely. That's an excellent point. Things that you'll pick up on as you go. People used to sometimes people want to start afresh every time they're doing a mixture, and that's not necessary to do. You can go back and use some of the mixtures anyway, right? Some of those perhaps. And so you want to keep some of that on your palette. So I just grabbed a little bit of water with my brush. So I cleaned it first a little bit. I just kind of did this. I picked up a tiny smidge of water. When I say a tiny smidge, it's a little bit. I'm just going to take that water, put it over the top of the edge of this color here. I'm going to use the water to help spread the paint lightly. Use to kind of spread it. It's a really subtle process. Again, all I did was grab a little bit of water, and now I'm using that water to help spread the paint. Okay. Back to my blue and black mixture. And the white. So blue, black, white. Similar color that I used for the outline. I'm going to come in here and just, so I'm creating this dark shadow area in there. And maybe over in this corner too. Need a little bit more blue. Maybe a smidge more black. Close up of the tent coming in just a moment. When we're all done, and we're getting kind of close, probably another 30 minutes, I'm going to stick around for 5, 10 minutes, probably more like 5, so that I can answer any questions any of you may have. So if you have questions for me, whether you painted or you're just watching or you suddenly jumped on, have your questions ready for me. More than happy to answer questions. Okay, there's this. Let me show you on the original. There's a tiny line right there, right where the opening of the tent is. You can make that here in a moment. There's also, so here's the darkest areas on the tent, here and here. And then there's a light blue where kind of, and just like with the light sources appear. Just imagine this is a source of shadow. It's always darkest right where there's least light. And as it moves away, it starts to lighten up. So over here, it's the opposite. It's brightest with the light sources and starts to lose that brightness as you move away from the light source. So we're going to recreate this here in just a moment. First, though, create that little skinny line. And try to use that. You do it with my little flock that I showed you. Real subtle. There we go. I like that. Okay, now this same blue and black mixture over here, I'm going to add a bit more white. I want the light version of this. I just mentioned that these corners or these edges are the darkest part. So I want to lighten up as I'm going to create a little transition area. As we move away from that area, from that dark corner, it gets a little bit lighter. Move it right here. A little bit here. There's a close-up. I'm adding a tiny highlight over here. As if the edge of my tent, this is optional, everyone. That's a very optional part. As if the edge of the tent is picking up a little bit of the color from the sky. So just a tiny bit of blue over there, maybe a smidge. If I can pick some up, trying to grab some of this yellow. Okay, a bit more white now, just a little tiny bit of white. Lighten this area up. Okay. All right. Since we've got yellow on the palette, a little bit of water, some of this yellow greenish color. So this is the blue and green mixed together, or sorry, blue and yellow mixed together. Maybe we'll throw in a tiny bit of white to lighten the color, just a little bit. Using my number 2 flat. Sorry, I had the hiccups there for a moment. Or hiccups. Come in here, we got some reflecting light. Make sure you use a little bit of water in it. Very washed out color. Not very different from what we did with the Aurora Borealis. Watch what I'm doing here. Okay. Just little streaks, light in that water. Right over here between the trees too a little. Okay, I'm going to grab a little bit more white now, just mix it in here to brighten things up. And maybe find a couple of patches. Okay, this little skinny brush. You could also use the round brush for this. I'm going to take what I'm creating is the light color that's going to go in my water way out for reflections, and then some of the highlights of the trees. Blue, some white. Might be a little too light. We will see. We won't know for sure until I place it on that canvas. A little bit of water, so I dip my brush in that water, bring it over, mix it in. I press down on both sides of that brush. Make sure we're making a really skinny edge with that brush, right? Come in here, off in the distance, where the shore across on the other side of this lake is we have a little bit of reflected light. And I think this is going to be a little too light for the reflection in the trees. So I'm going to take a little bit more blue, throw it in there. And then, now this light could also be yellow instead of green, instead of blue. Okay? Starting with these trees here, just on the inside. And this is light being reflected off of the tent. I won't go up too high because as we go up the tree, the light is less intense. So don't make too intense of a highlight. Just kind of pick some spots, dab a little bit. Here. What's especially going to be noticeable is against the darkest parts of the background. So where the water is and where the trees are, where the mountain is. You want variation in this. You don't want to make them all even lines, right? You want a little bit of a randomness to your brushstroke. Some areas have a little more highlight, some have a little less. It's subtle. And very subtle, just a little touch that adds a bit of realism to your painting. Okay, so you got about a minute, and then we're going to add those in the foreground or define them a bit, and then we'll assess. We'll take a little step back, we'll look at the piece, and then decide what's next. Like a for a water break for me. What's happening, Stephanie? Sounds good. You're going to the Northern Lights. Oh, that's right. Your guys' cruise in October. Cool, Stephanie. Make sure you take lots of. But yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Going and seeing them first. Okay, let me check on my YouTube people. Thank you, Tania. Thank you so much. Let's see, my tent is blocking some of my mountains on mid right side. That's okay. It's all right, Angie. No big deal. Everyone's painting is going to be a little different. Remember, your tent, depending on the size canvas you used, depending on the proportions that you used, depending on the size of your tent, etc. You're not going to necessarily create the exact proportions as to what I got. That's okay. You don't need to. It'll still work with all sorts of variations. Your tent could be over to the side of it. It could be higher up or towards the middle. It all really depends on your taste. How do you prevent paint drying out on your palette? So there's different ways to address that. If you're trying to keep your paint from drying on your palette as you're working, adding a little bit of water as you go is a good idea. So, for example, let's say I've got a mixture that I want to maintain fresh for a while. I have a mister, a little mister bottle. I didn't have any need to use it today, but I could mist my canvas. Not too much. I missed it a little bit to keep it from drying, so it slows down the drying process. One. Two, you can get what's called a wet palette. Okay, a wet palette is a device or a container basically that has a sponge in it. Then you have palette paper on top of that. You put your paints over that, and that wet sponge underneath keeps the paint wet throughout however long you paint for. Okay, so that's another way. And I think I've got a video where I teach people how to use a paint palette. That might be in the membership group. I'll have to see if I have it. I don't remember. Maybe it's a session we can do over here. But anyway, that is one way. Those are two ways. Okay. Also, third way, you can use a paint retarder medium, basically paint drying retarder. Mix it in with your paint, and it slows down the drying process. I don't recommend that. That's usually a very smelly medium, and it's kind of toxic for some people. It depends on. I don't think I've seen any. Not that I've used it very often, but I haven't seen it's not toxic. So that's another way. All right. So next step. Awesome, Sherry. Fantastic. Oh, that makes me feel good. Fantastic. Thank you so much for being here. Okay, good, Sherry. I know that we have a video in the membership group that talks about how to use a paint palette. Okay, and it also has a link to getting one if you want one. They sell them on Amazon. They have them at Hobby Lobby. But if it's in there, I'll tag you on it. And maybe though it's something that we can do here also in the Painting with Jesse group so that others can see that. But especially when it's really hot, like summer weather, paint palette comes really handy. You can also if you mix a paint color and you mix enough of it that you want to preserve for a few days, the paint palette has a cover. You close it, store it, and it maintains your paint fresh for quite a while. So that's another way. All right, back to the number 2 painting. A little bit of blue. We're gonna number 2 brush, not number 2 painter. This is part 2, but that's not what I'm talking about. So mixing some black and some blue. We mix a lot of blacks and blues in for this painting. So we're gonna make the color for the rocks. A little more blue, a little bit of white. It's probably a little too bright, but that's okay. We don't need an exact match to the original. So what we're creating right now is a dark blue, grayish color. Sherry, I don't know if you've seen the guides section in the membership group. There's a bunch of really useful stuff in there. I talk about different mediums that you can use. I talk about the paint palette. So if you get a chance, maybe I'll link you to that. But anyhow, there's lots of cool stuff in there that talks about like supplies and how to use this or how to use that. I have a tutorial in there where I use fan brushes also. Strictly fan brushes. I'm trying to remember. So again, just making a deep blue, grayish color. Okay, rock in the front. Raise this up a little bit. We're almost there, everybody. Hang in there, hang in there. We're almost there. I'm making this rock right in there. First, it's going to look like a blob. I'm going to refine that one too. I'm going to It's going to look like a flat blob. I already have this one back here started, so I'll give you a close-up. Now we need to give this some depth, some touches that are going to make them look more like actual rocks. How do we do that? We're going to add a few little highlights, maybe some lowlights, just to give them a bit of dimension. So I'm going to start with a little bit of white. I'm going to mix it in here with that first original color. I'm just going to grab a little bit of it. I'm still using my number 2 flat brush. Right here on the top of this one. Might be a little too light. We'll find out. A little color. Maybe it's got some light that's hitting the top of that, but it's also flat on top. We'll say that area is kind of flat. And then we're going to come over here and do the same thing over here. Okay. Maybe over here also. These are just subtle changes in the colors that you're using. Again, I've mentioned this already, or I think I mentioned it during our sessions, but when you've got a piece of rock or a piece of whatever it is, floor, sand, whatever, that you're working in, it's all literally supposed to be the same color. So when you mix your original color, like what we did with rock, right, for the rock, once you've applied that first base, now you want to add variations of that same color to what it is that you're painting. So you want those different values. You want those slight different hues. Here's a little bit more black. There's a little bit more light. A little bit more blue. You add those elements to that thing that you're painting. In this case, a rock. Those are the things that start to give it depth, realism, dimension. Okay, very important. Now, a little more black, just to create a darker part of a shadow. And it doesn't have to be super complicated. These pieces don't have a lot of detail. It's just a few minor things that make the piece stand out. I'm also going to take a little more blue and throw it in. A smidge of water also. This is pretty much, I think, the last step. I'm going to do an assessment here in a moment. So right here near the front, bottom edge where the shadow would be, right? The tent. I get subtle, everything very subtle, right here. Got a little bit more blue, a little bit more black, and maybe slight outline there. All right. Let's run it down from top to bottom. Now bottom to top. Oh, my reflection, my light reflection from the tent onto the snow or granite. One of you probably mentioned that in the comments, but so I should have done it. I should have, but I could have done it when I did the reflection in the water. White, tiny bit of water. Excuse me. Right here in front of our tent. Watch how I'm using my brush. Number 2 flat. Okay. A little more white. Maybe we got a couple of areas where it gets a little more intense. Okay. So, a couple of things. One of the last things that I would do, I would take a step back, assess it, look away, maybe go for a little walk, go back, come back, fresh eyes, fresh brain, even. Look at it again and kind of just sit back. Try not to have too much thought with the thought process. Just kind of look at it and let your eyes just look forward, look down. You're trying to pick out things that maybe need a little bit of adjustment, little touches, little something that, like the lights that I almost forgot, the glow down here on the base. That's what you're looking for. Now, you can sign it if you're good with how things are. You can sign it, and I would still not call it done. The way that I like to do painting, I picked up over time, is I walk away, leave it alone for a day or two. Just put it away, store it for a little bit, put it on my drying rack. Then I look at it again. I put it down and look at it again, maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day. Not until I've looked at it after leaving it alone for a couple of days or so, do I call it done. Because looking at something, at a painting that you've done, fresh eyes really makes a difference. You'll find things, not every time. Sometimes it's perfect. Sometimes it's perfect for me. It's perfect for you. Right? You might look at it and go, oh man, I love this. Man, I did awesome on this piece. Or you might look at it and go, oh, look at that tree. I forgot to highlight that. Or I forgot some branches on that one side or anything. Okay, so it's a good idea to leave it alone, look at it again. That is one thing that will take your paintings from good to really good, or wherever your level is, it'll bring them up just another little level because it allows you to look at it again and just make touches that you had not noticed were missing before. Or you think of something that like, oh, what would look great here? This, or a highlight or what have you, and then you can add it. Okay, but definitely, if you feel like you're done, sign it, and then you know look at it again in a couple of days. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and sign mine. It's the last step of this. Like I said, I'm going to be around for maybe another 5 minutes. If you guys have any questions for me, please ask them. Don't forget to like and follow the page. Follow, like, whatever options you've got. I'm going to use red to sign my piece. But follow the page. Look for the Painting with Jesse email list links. I post those on the discussion board. I'll post one here in a little bit so that you don't miss out on any of the events that we have here. I've mentioned that I have a membership group. It's called Finding Your Brushstroke. We do at least one meeting a month. One meeting a week, one session. But it's usually about 6 sessions a month. Some of it is drawing, most of it is painting. But if you guys are interested in the membership group, the doors will be opening in September. And I'll be posting about that. I also email out about that. But if you want to paint with me again on these free events that I have on the Painting with Jesse page, you want to stay up to date. So a little round brush, I put some water in the mixture. So here's what I did. I took some red, brought it over to the side, dipped my brush in that water because again, that water helps the paint flow a little bit better. Spin my brush because I'm going to be making skinny lines with it. That's probably a color that I could make a little bit brighter because it's a bit on the dark side. But I sign it with my last name. Okay, and there we are. Let me take a step back one more time, just do a quick assessment. I think we got everything. Pretty happy with the piece. Hope you are with yours. Some questions, everybody. What else do we have? All right, Penny. Sounds good. Thank you for joining in today. Sherry, my pleasure. Sherry Sebelov, my absolute pleasure. Oh no, Angie, it's okay. Off-white is okay. I mean, it's not a problem. It just depends on. Remember that you don't have to match my painting exactly. If a different color works well for you, think of that. Okay, you don't have to match it up exactly. The only blue that I used in this painting, Angie, is primary blue. Okay, the only blue that I've used is primary blue. Of course, I mixed it with some white and black and stuff to get all these different colors in here, but it is a primary blue that I used. What else? Anybody else? Let's see. What color mix did you use? Whoops, I lost the comment. For the highlights in the trees, it was just white and blue. Okay, just the white and the blue. So a little bit of blue, a little bit of white. Same color that I used for the shoreline off the distance, reflections in the shoreline. Just a little more blue in the highlights for the trees. So it's a little bit of darker blue in the trees. Yeah. So Sherry, the guides, there's a tab for guides. I'll link you to it. So you don't have to go looking for that. I'll link you to it. A bunch of really cool stuff in there, as I mentioned, that you might find useful. Also, you guys would like to share your paintings with me when you're all done with them, that would be fantastic. You can message them to me on Painting with Jesse. I think tomorrow or the next day I'll put up a post where I talk about the 2-day session, and I'll ask you guys to share your paintings in the comments. I would love to have a whole bunch of them that I could share. Where I've got several of your pictures that I could just throw up there. It's fun to see what everybody creates. What you're going to see, especially if you're newer to painting, is that everyone's going to have something a little bit different. Okay, and that's part of the fun. You got it, Sheila. Excuse me. All right, everyone. I think we are winding down here. Whoops. I was about to try to drink my water with the water cap. Cheers, everybody. Doesn't work with the water cap on. Angie, it is my pleasure. Thank you so much for joining. Okay. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate all of you that jump in on these sessions with me. It's a lot of fun to paint with you. I love spreading. To take some of Bob Ross's, what is the joy of painting. I also love to do my little part to spread the joy of art in general. Art in general, it's amazing what it can do to your peace of mind. And so, absolutely my pleasure. But all right. Looks like I got one more comment. You got it, Sheila. Mine still needs help. Not sure what to do to fix, or I need you in person. Yeah. Send me a picture, Sheila. Send me a picture on Messenger. I'll see what pointers I can give you. Okay. But all right, everybody. You got it, Sherry. Once again, everybody, thank you so much for joining in on these sessions. Of course, many of you are going to be painting with a recorded version of these. So remember to enjoy yourselves. Don't try to stress too much. Just kind of let things flow. A lot of it is about enjoying the journey. I know it's a metaphor for life, but it's about enjoying the journey, trying not to stress as much, and not worry so much about the outcome. The outcome, the more you paint, the outcomes will start to kind of fix themselves because you're going to gain the experience, the knowledge, and practice, right? That you need to kind of help you improve. But it takes time. Okay, so be kind to yourselves. All right. Okay, everyone. Thank you so much once again. Have an awesome rest of your day, and I will see you guys very soon on another session. Okay, so bye.